It begins in the kind of darkness that doesn't just swallow light, it swallows certainty. New York City, 1979. A city torn between liberation and fear, between the promise of new freedoms and the reality of shadows that move through the night. And somewhere inside those shadows, a killer hunted, quietly, methodically, without a face, without a name. And the only thing more dangerous than the killer was the truth that surrounded the world he moved through. This is the story of Cruising, the movie that sparked protests before it was even finished. The film accused of hysteria and homophobia. The film the NYPD tried to shut down. The movie that critics dismissed, activists condemned, studios feared, and yet somehow survived. A movie that became infamous not because audiences loved it, but because the world wasn't ready for it. The story begins with Detective Steve Burns, played by a young, sharp-edged Al Pacino, who was still fresh off Dog Day Afternoon in Serpico. In Cruising, Pacino dives into the role of a cop sent undercover inside New York's underground leather and S&M scene, tasked with finding a serial killer who is choosing his victims from inside this tightly knit subculture. But the deeper Pacino's character goes, the more blurred the lines become. Identity, morality, sexuality, and truth start to twist around him like smoke in a darkened room. And the movie doesn't rush, it lingers, it watches, it pulls you into the same uncomfortable uncertainty that Burns begins to drown in. But to understand how Cruising became one of the most controversial films ever made, you need to understand who made it. Director William Friedkin, the man behind The Exorcist and The French Connection, a filmmaker who never played it safe, never softened edges, and never shied away from conflict. When Friedkin found the 1970s novel Cruising, inspired by actual killings in New York's queer community, he knew it would ignite something explosive. But even he didn't realize how explosive. Because when word leaked that Friedkin was recreating scenes inside real underground clubs, using real patrons, real music, real locations, the backlash began instantly. Gay rights groups accused the film of demonizing queer spaces at a time when they were already under threat. Protesters surrounded filming locations, shouting so loud that sound engineers couldn't record dialogue. Some activists even sabotaged takes by blasting whistles to ruin the audio. Police, ironically, were also uneasy, afraid the film would escalate tensions in the city. And yet, Friedkin kept filming. The result was a thriller that doesn't behave like a typical Hollywood thriller. Instead of delivering answers, it gives questions. Instead of comforting certainty, it leaves you with blurred outlines. The killer is elusive. Motives are murky. Pacino's character becomes harder to read. And the world he enters becomes a psychological maze rather than a backdrop. The plot moves like a fever dream. Burns walking deeper and deeper into neon-lit nightclubs, tracking clues that feel like hallucinations, watching faces that look back with suspicion. There's a constant sense of danger, not just physical, but existential. It's a movie about losing yourself while pretending to be someone else. It's about systems that fail to protect the people most vulnerable. And it's about identity as something fragile, something that can be shaken loose if you stare into the wrong kind of darkness for too long. For many, this was groundbreaking. For others, it was offensive. For nearly everyone, it was unsettling. And then came its release. When Cruising hit theaters in 1980, it wasn't just banned in multiple countries. It was condemned by critics, shunned by activists, and dismissed by audiences. Some countries blocked it for depicting queer nightlife at all. Others banned it for its violent themes, and some simply called it too dangerous, too disturbing, or too inflammatory. But the strange thing is, many people who protested it never actually watched it. The controversy became larger than the film itself. But decades later, something began to shift. Film scholars re-examined Cruising through a different lens. They saw it as a time capsule, a rare, unfiltered record of a scene that vanished after the AIDS crisis. They saw it as a movie that didn't mock or ridicule queer spaces, but captured them with a surreal, documentary-like realism that no other Hollywood movie from the time dared to attempt. They saw Pacino's performance not as exploitation, but as fear, confusion, vulnerability. The story of a man facing parts of himself he never wanted to confront. And the ending, ambiguous, unsettling, unresolved, suddenly felt ahead of its time. Today, Cruising stands as a reminder of how art can become controversial, not because of what it shows, but because of when it shows it. A reminder that visibility can be both powerful and dangerous. And a reminder that cinema that challenges, provokes, or unsettles often survives longer than the movies that simply entertain. So what do we learn from Cruising? We learn that stories about marginalized groups are shaped by context, by politics, by culture, by fear, by misunderstanding. We learn that film can reflect society's anxieties more sharply than anyone expects. We learn that discomfort can be intentional, that ambiguity can be meaningful, and that controversy doesn't always equal harm. Sometimes it equals honesty in its harshest form. And as the credits roll on Cruising, you're left with a final truth. The film isn't about sexuality or nightlife or shock value. It's about identity and how easily it can slip through your fingers when you immerse yourself in someone else's world. It's about systems that fail. It's about people forgotten in the margins. It's about fear, not of others, but of what you might find inside yourself. And maybe that's why Cruising still lingers, decades later. Not because of what it shows, but because of what it forces you to confront when the lights go down.